Astro-Chads. All right, dude. So I got to tell you about this shirt. Okay, so I've been wanting to wear this shirt for a while, and I've been looking to bust it out for the perfect occasion, right? So as you can see, it's an NBA logo shirt. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like almost riff-raff style. You know, who wears an NBA logo collared black shirt? Anyways, I like wearing it, but I've been waiting for a special occasion to wear it, right? And so we were going to do this Gemini episode of Astro Chads. And I'm thinking to myself, this logo, it's kind of Gemini. We have a man here, whoops. And we have his two different sides. We got the, blue side. And on the opposite of that, we got the red side. And I'm like, there's something super Gemini about this logo. And I go look up who is the man in this logo. His name is Jerry West.
Oh,
Jerry West is a Gemini.
no way.
So this quite literally is a Gemini logo. Like there's nothing more Gemini on so many different levels than the NBA logo. So Jerry West, his birthday is May 28th, 1938. He was an old school point guard, but this is him and he's a Gemini. So pretty cool.
Yeah, man, I love that. Because Gemini not only does it rule bipolarity, meaning blue versus red, hot versus cold, but it rules logos.
No way.
Logos.
Dude, okay, so Jerry West's nickname is the logo. They call him the logo. And he's a Gemini. So like they had to know that before they decided to make him the logo, Well,
whoever did probably earn themselves a promotion.
So it rules duality and logos. That's crazy, dude. I didn't know that at all. So what does Gemini mean?
Gemini. So Gemini is the twins. And the twins, it's, I believe, Latin for twins. It might be, I'm going to have to look up the Greek. But it represents Castor and Pollux, the twins. But basically, what I'm seeing is the words geminate, Gemini, Gemini, Gemini. So you could almost kind of think of the word progeny, and there's a little bit of a connection there. You can see the thread with brotherhood. Now, if we break this down and understand Gemini from its ruling planet, Mercury, who's also called Hermes, is where we get words like hermano, hermetic, okay? Hermit, so brotherhood, hermano, your brother. So there's a connection here where we see Mercury ruling Gemini, Mercury ruling brotherhood, and your peers then being more specified within Gemini to twins. So not just a brother, but your twin or your twin sister. And Gemini also rules that things which are small. Okay, hence the name Mini, Mini. So there's also a connection to gems, but Gemini is not the only sign that rules gems, and certainly not the one that rules them most. But there is a connection there, especially when we understand that gems used to be how we communicated before. And even today, it is how we communicate with. There's a little bit of crystal in here, a gem somewhere in there. Quartz crystal or something similar to that. Precious metal could even be considered a gem, but those are how communication is facilitated through gems. So we only kind of barely understand that today. Gem, mini, from the mini is where you get mini, micros, all small things. This terminology comes from Gemini. Now, here's another thing. The word Bimini. How do we know that this is like a universal thread? The word Bimini originally means two islands.
Yep.
Okay. So that's a pretty interesting connection right there, because that has nothing to do with Latin.
Yeah.
From what we're told, native Floridian or Bahamian language, Bimini. And remember, Florida was once known as Bimini. They only later settled that and specified that name to the one small island in the Bahamas. Previously, it applied to a couple different islands, and it applied to all of Florida Peninsula. So Bimini, Mini, Gemini. Gemini rules things that are small.
So I had a pretty big spark.
And sorry, one more thing. Gemini rules talking, and most importantly, small talk and
That's interesting.
small affairs. And Gemini can be very particular. And Virgo has the highest attention to detail, and Scorpio, but Gemini is certainly up there. And
Okay.
Gemini can stress the small things. So Gemini is all about that which is small, that which goes unseen or overlooked by the other signs. And Gemini is where the intellect in. So we're seeing a lot of intellect, insight, innovation, right? This is the first in sign of the zodiac. So perhaps the only, haven't checked that. But Gem in E. Yeah.
So Gemini, right?
Yeah.
As in Minnie Mouse, right?
Okay.
And she sort of has her twin in Mickey, and she's
Uh-huh.
small. She's a mouse.
Well, yeah.
So there's
Mickey,
definitely, yeah.
Mickey and Minnie are the same words because Mickey is micro.
Hmm.
Okay. Mick, micro instead of macro, right? So yeah, big connection there. Gemini, Mickey. Mercury, Mark. Mercury is he's the small guy. Mercury is the small planet closest to the sun. The little small guy hanging in there. He's the little a lot of times Mercury has the same name as the sun in a lot of different ancient cultures. You could say he's somewhat of a twin, a fraternal twin, not identical, but he's a hanger on. He's an extra. And Mercury himself rules things that are polar. So
So our coin is sort of Geminian, as you would say, like a coin and it's two-faced. It has one side, it has the other, right?
yeah.
Very cool. So what is the animal that represents Gemini?
So Gemini is up for debate. Now, Gemini, because of its mercurial rulership, is kind of a hard one to pin down. Just like when people ask me what color or what day, well, we know what day it is. It's Wednesday. Wednesday is ruled by Mercury. But what color goes with that day? I always don't know what to tell people because for me, it's very much up in the air. Mercury rules the air. Gemini is an air sign, and it's always changing. And Geminis, like I said, tessellating, have a very tessellating nature to them. So it's hard to pin down, but I would say there's a pretty much a unanimous agreement that it is a bird of some sort. So that's either going to be the ibis, like Mercury or Hermes or Thoth himself, a wading bird, or a wise wading bird, representing knowledge, or it's going to be so with the ibis, it could also be a stork, a heron, things like that, a wise bird. But then Mercury and Gemini, especially, is also associated with the talking birds. For example, a raven. Raven's dark, so in the sense that a raven's dark and represents death, some people might associate it with Saturn, which makes sense, especially if it's picking, a dead body apart. But in the manner that they speak, they're represented or ruled by Mercury and Gemini, because Gemini rules communication, speech, patterns. So speech patterns, behavioral patterns, habits. Gemini rules small talk, like I mentioned earlier. Gemini also rules intellect. Gemini is the sign where the intellect starts to take precedence over the other bodily functions. In Aries, we see the people being capable of immense expenditure of energy. Aries can be like, and they're like never-ending batteries, and they're confident and fearless. We saw how Taurus is strong and sturdy and capable, but slow-moving, and maybe not a intellectually active all the time sign. Well, Gemini is more so always intellectually active. They're always inhabiting the mind. They dwell in the mind, and that's kind of where they. Taurus lives through the body. Aries lives through the willpower, or whatever, a drive. This type of drive. or a passion, a type of burning. Gemini is much more temperate, and they move with the wind. So, blah, blah, blah. Tie back to the animal. You've got either a talking bird, like a parrot. Here's my favorite one, okay? Parrot. People are going to love this. Gemini has to be a parrot in part. So it can either be the ibis / wading bird, the raven, or any talking bird, especially a parrot. Now, let me tell you why it's especially the parrot. Because when you pair something, you have two of them, do you not? And if Gemini rules speech and talking, and the parrot is the animal most capable of talking, and to repeat something to somebody is to parrot it. To make fun of something back to someone is to parody, right? All these parrot words, pair it up, add 1 and 2 equals 3, right? Or pair, 2 and 2, 2 of a pair, whatever. So this implies arithmetic. It implies speech. It implies all these things. Now, to top it all off, the cherry on top of the parrot connection and Gemini being the sign of speech, what part of the body do you wear your parrot on? Your shoulders.
Yeah.
Well, Gemini rules the shoulders, okay? The collarbone, the shoulder, the deltoids, and the arms, the twins, okay? These are the twins. So you wear your parrot on the part of the body that is associated with Gemini, also ruling speech, which that animal is also emblematic of. You know, this is how God works, and this is how etymology kind of harmonizes everything for us to learn. And that's the parrot. There's also other talking birds. Some also say robin because Mercury also rules thievery and theft and kind of like that ancient medieval like thieves guild mentality, like this honor among thieves or art of thievery. Gemini ruled over that. And Gemini rules over most guilds and brotherhoods and hermetic orders, things like that. Fraternal, all words like that. So that's a little bit about the animal. I'd say the robin, although we're also going to talk about that with Virgo, because Virgo is also ruled by Mercury. So you're safe going with the ibis. You're safe going with a wading bird. You're safe going with a hummingbird, I would also say. Being the quickest moving, buzzing animal, I associate with the hummingbird in part because of how small it is, how fast, it's zipping past. Very mercurial.
So to bring it back to Jerry West real quick. Oops, I always point to the wrong side. So he's a point guard. Okay, so he's using his twins, both of his arms, both sides, got to be able to dribble with his right and his left, pass to his right and to his left. He's distributing, but he's also using his head. Point guard is kind of like the quarterback, where they're sort of the quarterback of the basketball court. So like he's prototypical Gemini to the core, it seems.
Oh yeah.
So I'm trying to think of like some professions or careers that would correlate to using the twins, the arms most effectively, right? So you got point guard in basketball, but perhaps there are other positions, but also professions where this sign could really accelerate.
Receivers on the football field, basketball all around. Geminis tend to have a hard time sticking around the NFL, but they do well in the receiver position using their hands. Run. They're swifty, or however you say it. They're very light on their feet. They're like Mercury with the wings on his ankles. They're very quick. And the word quick goes back to Mercury too, because Mercu is the Q. That's where you get things like courier. So if someone's a courier, they're a fast-moving runner. That is Gemini as well. So Geminis are good, fast runners too. They're quick. That's their specialty in sports, in my experience. Here, the best tessellation artist. We'll talk about this later. But MC Escher, MC Escher?
I don't know. Who is that?
Okay, well, we'll get to this later, but if we don't, I'll say it right now. MC Escher is like the most famous tessellation artist. He's also the guy who made the hand holding the mirror, looking at himself. That is the most quintessential Gemini piece of art. Gemini rules the hands. He's holding a mirror. Okay. Mira means, to see. Myrrh also goes back to myrrh. These all go back to the word Mercury. The word myrrh, mirror, it go back to Mercury. And he's holding a mirror in his hand, and it's in his own. One hand he's holding the mirror, the other hand he's writing it. And we're looking at the painting, or we're looking at the drawing of the other hand holding it with himself in the reflection. It's this huge mind game thing, and perspective, and all of these are Geminian principles at their core. So MC Escher, that's just one of his pieces. Then you have his tessellation art. Gemini rules tessellation, meaning, a yin and a yang fitting in together, and how just puzzles, Gemini rules as well. Mercury ruled by Gemini. Sorry, Gemini ruled by Mercury rules puzzles and tessellations and things like that. So, this always shines through in the best athletes, the best artists. Their zodiac comes through them like a totemic spirit, and it almost can't be obstructed. It can't be restrained. And some people are astrologically minded and implement this stuff on purpose, like Salvador Dali, who was a Taurus, who we should have talked about. Well, Salvador Dali has his mustache in the manner of a Taurus bull horns. So the different iterations of his mustache all represent different types of bovine horns.
So is there like a balance to Gemini? Because I think of these two different sides, polar opposites, but sort of the same. It sort of reminds me of the villain in Batman called, I think it's Two-Face is his name, right?
Harvey Dent.
Yeah, Harvey Dent. Right. So that's automatically what I think of when I think of Gemini, but I'm wondering, is there a balance to it, or is it just these polar opposites or sort of twins?
I'm looking up that guy's birthday. That'd be crazy.
Yeah. That would be wicked crazy. It wouldn't surprise me.
No, but here's a good one. He is
What?
a Pisces, which is the other like yin yang sign. It's the two fish. That's the actual yin yang.
Whoa.
Yeah, I see that too. But he's a Pisces, the actor, Aaron Eckhart. Now, if he was two people, that makes sense. And there is a Gemini rulership there with, having two faces, but it also goes to Pisces.
So it sounds to me like Gemini is actually the best time of the year to sort of meet somebody in a relationship. If there's a yin to your yang, right?
Yes, you could see it like that. There's something to that because one of my favorite astrology books recommends when the moon is in Gemini is the best time to go meet people, is the best time to go to a bar, anything, any gathering, and just to meet people and spark up a conversation. Gemini, having the moon in Gemini will be favorable to that endeavor.
Very cool.
And it's got here, I want to pull up some words. Mercury, Mercury rules merchandise, that which is medical, because remember, medi is the halfway point, medium, midway. So medical is why you get the caduceus symbol with the two wings and the serpent down the middle. This medicine symbol comes from hermetic, medical, hermit, midway. These are all Mercury words, and Gemini inherits much of those mercurial qualities because Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is also murky. It rules the merging of things. It rules mercy, right? To negotiate, talk things out. And if someone's mercurial, well, I was going through murder yesterday with moor and more, how it goes back to the Irish word for ancient, more.
Okay.
And if something's ancient, it's dead. So it's more, der. But there is a connection there too. All phonetic sounds do correlate like that. Kabbalistically, regardless of the vowel.
Right. Is there a balance to Gemini?
Right.
Sort of like Libra.
Yeah. Okay. So a cross on the other side would be Sagittarius. Gemini is an air sign. That's why it rules communication and education. I'll say learning, because you don't have to learn in an education setting. Virgo rules education. So Gemini rules learning, it rules communication, social, not status, but social aptitude, being able to talk and go around. It's not a charisma sign. That's something I'll say is Geminis don't have this charisma knack. It is a intellectual knack and an articulation. Gemini is the most articulate sign. So Leos might go in and wow people with their, confidence and charisma or their, entertainment value. Whereas Gemini is very much, they like to get down to the nitty gritty, discuss things at length, and they like to talk it out. Argued, very hard to win an argument against a Gemini. Very, very difficult.
Okay, when you say win an argument, it automatically makes me think of Donald Trump, a Gemini.
Yeah.
How prototypical is he?
They're master communicators and manipulators, meaning not like they're not like moral, they're not like amoral, but I mean they're so good at communicating and understanding people when they're around, discussing one-on-one especially, or on the phone. You asked about career. Geminis excel on the phone. Every other sign has a harder time coming through as themselves on the phone. Geminis excel on the phone.
Wow.
My mother has worked on the phone for like 20 years. She is a Gemini and talks on the phone for a living and rarely sees any of the people she's working with in person. It's all done remote. It's all on the go. And Geminis are great at that. Geminis are the best Uber drivers, okay? My friend that I graduated high school and hung out with a lot, I graduated. He was older than me, but once I started hanging out with him, he was Uber driving. I'd always be hanging out with him, and then he would go Uber drive. And he did that for a long ass time, and he might still be doing that. That is a stereotypical Gemini thing. They're the best commuters. So communication and commuting, right? And you asked about Trump. Trump is a total Gemini, complete. The way he's talking with his hands, he's always splitting things into two parts. You know what I mean? Or he's bringing together.
He's always doing that. You're right. Yeah.
He's always either splitting together or bringing two halves together. Or if he's really gonna divert, if he's really like shifting blame or laying blame on someone, he'll do this, right?
Yeah.
You'll always see. So he's always got his palms out. You'll never see him with his palms in. Italians, you really got to pay attention to this. He's a master communicator. He will never show you his knuckles. Okay. You've got Italian people, all, different, just hating on the Italians, not actually. Italians, it's common. They'll show you the knuckle. They'll be talking the whole time, but their knuckles, and people don't understand. It's very combative. So Trump is quite literally, some people will say he's like, spreading your cheeks or whatever. But he's a master. He knows how to calm people down. He's super abrasive, but he's never violent. He's never off his cool, if that makes sense. So he's a very well-tempered Gemini. Now he does have these like jolts of memory and jolts of, he'll just be surged with a new idea out of nowhere. And he almost converses with himself a lot of the time. The very Geminian speaker is what I'm trying to get at. And he chose Mike Pence as his VP. Mike Pence is also a Gemini. So that was a textbook Gemini move, having two Geminis around. Yeah.
So that's something that they do strategically as Geminians, as you say, right? But a Leo probably wouldn't do that. A Leo probably wouldn't want another Leo around.
Exactly. That's a really good point, because Gemini does well with peers and equals, and they excel at not understanding, but making things work. And they like, if something's broken, Gemini needs to fix it. Gemini has a mechanical mind, very much, mechanical. That comes from Mercury too. Merc.
So what happens when a Gemini flips on you? Do they have a sense of loyalty right? Like as long as you're
Yeah.
loyal to them, they probably love you. But as soon as you break that, as soon as you're disloyal, they probably hate you. How does that work? You know?
Right. Now, I'll say this. My ascendant is Gemini,
Okay.
and I can have a hot and cold nature, especially Geminis. Well, let's just take Trump, for example. Trump has been known to be vicious to people very close to him and then act like nothing happened and say, what? I was, it's what you needed to hear. And yeah, I'm ready to be your friend again. I'm not upset. Meanwhile, the people he just ripped on will be upset about it for weeks, if not forever. And this is coming from his butler. I made a video about this a little bit. His butler would say this, that he's just ruthless at the drop of a hat, but then he snaps out of it and he's your best friend and he's a little concerned why why you're upset at him. And basically, Gemini it's very common for them to have bipolar, like diagnosed bipolar disorder, whatever, however real that is, blah blah blah. But they can be vicious. My mother was a Gemini. Okay, so they can be vicious, but they don't understand. They're so in the communication realm that they're not registering any of this on an emotional level. They're just want to get to the idea and get to the resolution and can, hash things out. They don't understand that people are kind of not set aback, but
Kind of taken aback by
taken
their
aback.
straightforwardness, and then the
Yeah.
Gemini is like, "What's the big deal, man?" You know what I
Yes.
mean? They've already recovered, and the other
Yes.
person might be still thinking about it, like, "Oh my
Yes.
god."
So
Okay, cool. I can see
this
that.
this is kind of how we're getting to this two-faced reputation that Gemini has. Gemini has a reputation for being two-faced, like Harvey Dent, like we were saying. Um, Being two-faced means that you show one thing and hide another. But I also see this as they're capable of switching opinions so quickly that they really are possessing two separate opinions. And it's a struggle on the inside for Geminis. But they're also, yes, they can be master manipulators if they're not morally, tuned correctly. They can be master manipulators. These are the snakes in the grass. Back to the well, whatever. I was gonna say animal, but basically Gemini can be the complete like mean girl archetype, just
Mhm.
orchestrating people's downfall. I remember my mother got teachers from school fired for the slightest of offenses, and Geminis just have a vicious kind of it's not a moral thing. They're not very ethically driven people. Although I'm not taking that away from anybody, people do great things and achieve a lot. Trump, for example, and different people. Some of my heroes are Geminis, don't get me wrong, but they're not. For example, Sagittarius is like truth driven.
Yeah.
Pisces is belief driven. Leo goes where their heart takes them, and Cancer too a little bit. Or Cancer goes where their gut or their stomach takes them, or their chest. Oh, I feel that in my chest. Gemini goes where the wind takes them. It's all up in the air. It's all a matter of breath, in and out. And every time it's one or the other, they might shift their opinions, and that can be anger versus um, being pleasant. But Trump's very much like that. And
So, I'm seeing a correlation with Gemini and memory. They're quick to move on. They're
mhm,
going with the wind. In some
yeah.
positions, like sales and quarterback, if somebody tells you no on the phone when you're trying to sell something, you move on quickly, right? Quarterback, you throw an interception, you got to move on quickly. You can't dwell on it, right? So
hmm
I'm seeing this correlation with memory where they sort of move on quickly. But this also made me think about Geminis in relationships. They probably move on pretty quick.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Gemini is not the sign that's going to be crying in bed for months after a breakup. they can move on from friends very easily. That's why they have this reputation of being cold. All the air signs have a little bit of a reputation of being cold, distant, you know. I was also going to say that Johnny Depp is a Gemini, and Geminis tend to deal with personality disorder and kind of not depression, but kind of everything else, like mental illnesses and mind sufferings of the mind, because there's so much mental activity in Geminis. You know, if we could talk about the facial shape, um, the facial shape of Geminis is kind of like a light bulb. They tend to have a light bulb head, like small down here, and a bulbous, you know, thinking, a lot of thinking going on, their activity, like mega mind, right?
Hmm.
Something like that. And you'll find this, I can guess Geminis a lot by the shape, the bulbosity, I don't know, the bulbousness. How would you say it? Bulbous is the perfect word.
Okay, sort of like an alien, those gray aliens cartoons they have.
Yes,
Sort of.
a
Okay.
little bit, yeah. And they have a lot of activity in the face, meaning they might have a twitch under, you know, on the lip, like they're always resetting their face, or they're very quick, nervy people, maybe even nervous. And yeah, a lot of thoughts. So the face will kind of express all this quick activity going on. And oh, they talk with their hands. Like I said, I talk with my hands a ton. I have my Gemini ascendant.
So when you mentioned
Also,
Johnny Depp, right?
mhm,
Something popped into my mind. Like a famous quote that he said was, he doesn't like to watch his own movies. Like after the movie's done, he's moved on and he wants to go on to the next project. That's very Gemini, right? And then I thought,
yes, it is. Can I touch
yeah,
on that?
yeah, definitely.
Gemini don't set their feet all the way in the sand, or they don't finish what they start. That's what a lot of people say about Geminis, and they jump from hobby to hobby. So you're perfectly right, because Johnny Depp's very much like that. I brought up Johnny Depp because I think Gemini also kind of rules like character acting, or what do they call that, where they like fully commit to the role or fully commit to the role.
Oh, I know what you're thinking about.
Method acting.
Mhm.
So Gemini rules methods. Okay, methods, and that's a very Gemini thing to have, this personality disorder, like self-imposed, you know, split personality. Johnny Depp, the roles he takes on tend to be very quirky, upbeat, like very, you know, sharp, like sharp as a tack. All these little quips and quick retorts and things like that. He's very spunky. This is very Geminian. He's always portraying this in a Geminian way, no matter who he's portraying. And then the characters and the faces he'll put on and the makeup, and it's all very Geminian with the shifting of personalities. And that's not just any actor, because, you know, Tom Cruise literally plays the same dude in every single movie. He's like, I'm a badass. I get the chicks. It's like, what more do you need to know? It's like,
Yeah.
that's my fast car, right?
Right.
It's, I'm gonna save the world. So what? You
Yeah.
know, whereas Johnny Depp's more like, oh, what were you just saying, Bill? Right then?
Right,
Oh,
right.
well, I have a million jokes prepared for what you have just said, and you know, he's very sharp as a tack, and um,
So he
yeah,
wants to move on to the next movie, but what is something Trump always said in construction? He wants to be under budget, ahead of schedule. He wants to
mm,
move the fuck on. As soon as the project started, he wants to get it done and get rolling, right?
Kanye West is a Gemini, so you
Let's
know,
go. Oh my
wordsmith.
god. So that's why he wanted to pick Trump as VP as well, because they're both Geminis. It's kind of like he wanted he asked Trump. Honestly, some of the best content I've seen recently is Fuentes explaining on Fresh and Fit his meeting with Trump and Ye, and him explaining that whole situation. But now it makes sense that Ye, very premature and silly move, he asked Trump to be his VP. But there's this parallel here where Trump and Pence, both Geminis, Ye and Trump, both Geminis. I think that ship has sailed, but it's just an interesting correlation.
Oh yeah,
So basically, Fuentes and Ye, they're at dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Trump. And Ye, I mean, Nick tells this whole story recently on Fresh and Fit. So Trump is pissed. He was pissed. He was like, Ye literally asked him to be his running mate. I mean, Fuentes perfectly describes the Geminian flip. He flipped on them. Fuentes describes how he thought Trump was going to hit them, talking about him and Ye, and he goes on to tell these like sort of veiled threat stories to them about how, oh, I bailed out A$AP Rocky. He was disloyal. I bailed out some other rapper. He was disloyal. And he said to Kanye, he's like, tell your wife, Kim, she's a piece of shit. Something like that. Tell your wife, Kim, that she's a horrible person. Something to that effect. And it was super Gemini and it was super gangster because they're at dinner and he flipped on them. And apparently he did not want to take a picture with Kanye after. And, rightfully so, because they sort of acted disloyal in a sense. Instead of saying, hey, we were going to support you for presidency, how dare them have the audacity, Ye asking him if he would be his VP, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a fascinating story because he goes into it in detail, that whole situation. So
sure, yeah. Kanye's a total, the Gemini rune, or Gemini rune is the Kanan rune. So he's a Kanye, very Geminian. And
what does the Kanan rune mean?
Kaunan here. Let's look
Okay.
at Kaunan. 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 The K rune is the K rune. Or just Khan is sometimes Khan or Kana.
So Khan has two connotations. So it can be Khan as in like deceive, or it can be I can, like I can. Like Trump and Ye definitely have that I can attitude,
Mm-hmm. And the Khan is Khan, like king, right? Like Genghis Khan, conqueror, confidence. And Khan, my name, Connor, is the Irish name for Jupiter.
Wow.
And Jupiter, being Connor, it's Donner in Germany. And then, so Thor, Donner, and then you cross over into Ireland, it's Connor. So Dawn, that's why the Dawn, saying someone's the Dawn is also like saying they're the Khan.
Wow.
Donald is the Dawn, So his name is very Geminian too.
That's awesome. So Ye, Kanye West is a Gemini, right? And he has a song with YNW Melly called Mixed Personalities or something. And he just talks about having mixed personalities, which makes sense for him as a Gemini. But YNW Melly is a Taurus and was subject to Florida's Baker Act, I believe it's called, when they put you in a mental hospital. He has multiple personalities, one of which is Melvin, even though he's a Taurus, but he has a lot of different personalities. And when he was the Melvin personality, he killed allegedly a few of his friends, and he's currently on trial for it. I was thinking if YNW Melly was a Gemini too, that'd be crazy if they did a song called Mixed Personalities and then one of his personalities committed a heinous crime. You know what I'm saying? But he's a Taurus. But there's still sort of a corollary there,
Morgan Freeman, Gemini rules the voice, the speech. Morgan Freeman has probably narrated more than anyone else in the world. I mean, he's the talker of all talkers. He's like, everyone wants a piece of my narrations. And he narrates movies and National Geographic, stuff like that. Very Geminian to be a narrator. Audiobook.
Are there any women you can think of that are Geminis that are worth talking about?
Oh, yeah. Angelina Jolie.
Babe Squad. Let's talk about her. Okay. Yeah. Who's the second one?
Natalie Portman.
Oh my God, Babe Squad.
Smart.
Let's go.
Okay, so Angelina Jolie, I'm not sure how much of the qualities she fits. She's just smoking hot, and I just wanted to bring her up.
Tomb Raider was her best movie, in my opinion.
But she was, I don't know. Well,
and Gone in 60 Seconds, she was dope in that too. She had those like blonde dreads. She's dope. And there was the other one, Girl
Aiden
Interrupted.
Smith.
Girl Interrupted, she crushed in that. I didn't see Aiden Smith. I don't know what that is.
Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that. No.
Dude, love that movie. Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Oh my
Well,
God. So she's a Gemini playing Mr. and Mrs. Smith. It's very Geminian. I love that word. I'm going to start using it.
yeah. So, I mean, I might, whatever, we'll just bring her up. She looks like a Gemini, I'll say that. She has the Gemini features, pronounced forehead. Natalie Portman is much more of this archetype. She's the smart one. She went to Harvard, if I'm not mistaken.
She did.
She's a learned girl. She always wants to talk her head off in movies. And yeah, she just kind of demands this like smart girl attitude usually in her roles. And who else do we have? Lily Rose Depp, Natalie Portman, Angelina Jolie. You see this forehead, this pronounced forehead. It's different than the Aries forehead. It's more at the top. You see it pronounced out at the outer sides and up at the top, like a light bulb. Nicole Kidman and Marilyn Monroe, both Geminis. Who are some of the most famous twins ever?
Mary Kate and the other one.
The Olsen twins.
Yeah.
And the Olsen twins are Geminis. So perhaps the most famous Geminis, at least in America, that I know of. Or sorry, most famous twins that I know of.
So how can we expect a Gemini to dress?
Geminis they can change. That's one of the main themes with Gemini is they're shifting, they're changing, they're merging, they're hopping from one thing to the next. But if it's going to be a consistent style, I'd say you see patterns. These are the people who might, dress like a broken TV screen, right? With patterns going different directions and then stuff like that. And they might be wearing conflicting patterns, right? And not see it, or at least make it work, something like that. But Geminis are also similar to Aries, they're very active. They like to be quick moving, and they don't like to wear super constrictive things. I'd also say that they wear what their occupation demands. So you'll see Gemini in uniform a lot, right? Or they'll be wearing their uniform outside of work for longer than they need to. Trump's always. Have you ever seen Trump wearing anything other than a shirt and golfing outfit?
No, it's either suit and tie or that.
Sorry, suit and tie and golfing outfit.
Yep, pretty much those two.
Yeah. So I mean, they can be repetitive. Gemini rules repetition. I know that sounds like a contradiction to the shifting, but if they find their swing, they get in a loop. They get in a repetition. That's it.
This is what you said to me earlier today. Do you want to go through the planet type, Marshall? Cancer more ruled by Moon, Cancer more ruled by Jupiter.
Right. Yeah. So with Gemini, there's only one ruling planet. So we typically only get one type. Just like with Aries, we typically only get one type. With Taurus, we only get one type, really, because even if there were two types, they're so similar. Moon and Venus, they're so similar. With Mercury, we only get one ruling planet. And you'll find this with the mutable signs. There's no real rhyme or reason to what planets rule them or how many. So Gemini has just one ruling planet, Mercury. And the only thing that possibly exalts in Gemini is Mercury. So we have only one dimension to its rulership. And that's also why it's such an intellectual sign, because only Mercury is presiding over this sign, meaning there's so much mercurial energy, talking, thinking, learning, things like that.
So I honestly sort of think of sort of the twin pillars, if you will, sort of the spring equinox and the fall equinox. It's sort of Geminian, right? These two pillars representing the two sides of the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gemini is also, like I said earlier, Castor, Pollux, kind of these archetypal twins. And you could also throw in, what do they call it? Jachin and Boaz, Joaquin, Jachin, Hakin, and Boaz, these two Masonic pillars. There's a connection there for sure. Gemini also, you were going to say?
Yeah, there seems to be like an energetic connection as well. If you think of something that's positively charged, negatively charged, and this sort of duality that Gemini sort of represents, it's a highly significant sign.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you think about battery, to batter something is to use your hands. Okay, Gemini rules the hands. If you're making a batter, you're stirring, you're mixing, you're moving it very quickly. You're changing it from one thing to the next. And that battery, also battery, batter, batter, violence, batter, to mix something up and then coat something else in it. These are all very Geminian qualities. So you're right with that. And magnetism is also a connection too, especially. But remember, Gemini and especially Mercury and Virgo rule medicine, the Hermetic principles.
Wow, that's huge. So Gemini rules small talk. How is the weather in Florida?
Man, it's a little cloudy right now,
Okay,
but I'm not complaining
nice.
because I'm going to be inside for the next couple hours or so. So I'm not
How
complaining.
was your weekend?
Well, I mean, does the week ever end?
That was good. That's a great little piece of small talk you got there. I'm just living the dream.
Well, every day is paradise when you got a pair of these eyes. Am I right?
Oh, wow.
Whatever.
Yeah,
I,
small
I
talk's
don't
tough.
know.
I find small talk painful. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's kind of like I like to be high and by. You know what I mean? But like, I will do small talk, just going about my day, just because you kind of have to sometimes. But I wonder if there's something about Virgo, or maybe
Yes.
Sagittarius as well, that you don't do small talk either. You do big
Listen.
talk.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this Sagittarius definitely does big talk. With Virgo, let's look at the word. Virgo is always on the verge of, oh, I got to do something else. I'll see you
Right.
later. Or they're always going away, right? You
Yeah.
see, they're on the verge of going somewhere else. So, I wrote down one time, Virgo away from me,
Okay.
right? So that's kind of like this Virgo attitude is they like to be alone. They're the hermit.
Yeah.
Go away,
Dude, I'm so stoked for the Virgo episode because one of my best friends growing up has the same exact birthday as me.
Mm,
Okay. So I got a chance to study him as well as, study myself as a Virgo. And there was this other girl we were cool with. Her birthday was September 14th. And so Virgos have played a very interesting role in my life. But yeah, Virgos literally always on the go, like always kind of have a mission or something, or they're looking forward to another mission, but never either super stagnant in a hermit-like phase or
mhm.
literally, not. It's kind of either or.
I hope these are only going to get more interesting
I
as we
know.
get
I love
deeper
this.
into the
Dude,
zodiac.
I'm so excited for people to I'm so excited for this series to come out.
All right, peace, bro.
See you,
Peace
man.
out.